want to talk about Palestine. Are you surprised that we've had 18 months of a live-streamed genocide? Some of the worst imaginable atrocities. Gaza wiped from the face of the earth, 93% of homes damaged or destroyed, every hospital attacked, 83% of plant life destroyed, agriculture razed, starvation, deliberate starvation, backed up by genocidal rhetoric. And yet the vast majority of the media and political establishments across the West will not call out a crime for what it is. I mean, we've seen war crimes in Iraq and elsewhere. This is of a different order. Do you not think? Are you surprised? Do you find that shocking in some way? Even if we understand the dynamics, the power dynamics, the context, in a sense, it's not. Maybe we're shocked but not surprised. What do you think?
I think you provided now the correct description.
Yeah, shocked but not surprised.
I am not surprised. I saw it coming. This tendency in Zionism has a long history, as you maybe know better than me. The key is already provided by a quite courageous, wonderful text, probably you know it, in 46, I think. New York Times published a one-page advertisement signed by big Jewish names like Einstein, Hannah Arendt, and so on, claiming that, how is it called, the predecessor of Likud party at that point, that be careful, they are a new form of Nazism. So, no, I'm not surprised, but I think we should, and that's why I admire your podcasts. I am proud to be here with you. We have to keep that sense of urgency. We should be not surprised by shocked again and again, because the tendency today on the left and on the right is to normalize this horror. You know, you have right-wing normalizers. I know from once you were part of it, continental Europe, Meloni and others, they don't simply rehabilitate fascism. They just say, you know, we have to look at it objectively. Yes, there were some excesses, but, and so on. And then you now also have, but I will not talk about them, some crazy pseudo-leftist rehabilitations, even of Stalin and so on. So we have to keep alive this shock. Don't normalize it. Because you describe this in your podcasts, that's, for me, I know I will now sound as an old-fashioned moralist, but what the hell? Why not? You know that we are approaching a stage where even the old hypocrisy has gone. When Israel or Trump, when they do something terrifying, they even don't try to justify it through some complex dynamic. They simply do it. And what is, again, sorry if I repeat all the time this point, as you pointed out in many of your podcasts, how problematic even their metaphors or historical references that they use to justify what they are doing. I mean, it's terrifying. For example, not only did Netanyahu a couple of times refer to Gaza Palestinians as Amaleks, but now even the Supreme Court make a very obscure decision where they claim that this parallel with Amaleks means that if Israel is confronting someone who is today like Amaleks, then basically they say we can do the Holocaust, we can kill them all.
Well, to be clear with the story of Amalek, Amalek attacked the Israelites, and it's the one...
It is madness.
The one time when the Israelites were put to kill every man, woman, child and livestock.
In contrast to many of today's either Jews or Christians, I, as an atheist Christian, as I define myself, I actually read at least parts of the Bible. Please go and look at that part. It's horror. Israel was wandering for 40 years on Sinai. Then they are up on the mountain and see down there is a nice valley with people who were the Amalek. And then who appears? Jehovah.
Hi.
Yeah, who said, go down, kill them all. Children, animals, everybody.
Yeah,
and then, to be honest, Joshua is slightly surprised. He says, but wait a minute, we came here, they didn't do us anything, can we, and so on. And Jehovah insisted, no, you have to do it, and so on. I mean, don't you find a little bit strange to refer today to this example? But I think they're doing it on purpose. What you said about here, I'm even maybe more of a pessimist. It's a refined distinction, but nonetheless. I think that it's not so much that the majority don't know. They know, but they pretend that or act as if they don't know. We all know, even the right-wing media or most pro-Zionists, that horrible things are happening not only in Gaza. From the beginning, I insist that West Bank is the key, and so on. But, you know, we just decided to ignore it. And why this horrifies me? Because, very briefly, why do I define myself? It will sound as a joke, I repeat it all the time, but it's not. Why do I define myself as moderately conservative communist? Because I think that the big problems that we are confronting today, ecology, world war, artificial intelligence, every idiot should know, and we all know it, that we can only cope seriously with these problems in a global approach. That's for me communism, not a new Stalin Politburo, but serious global cooperation. The example that I like to use is, you remember, now it's already 3 or 4 years ago, when in that area, Vancouver, Seattle, temperatures reached 50 degrees Celsius. For a couple of days, Vancouver, Seattle were more hot than the usual suspects, that is to say, Emirates and that part. Now, can you blame them? No. Locally there, they had a pretty consistent ecological, they were definitely not worse than others. We know what's the problem. The circulation of air around northern pole is deeply disturbed. That's why even in northern Russia, Siberia, that Arctic coast, temperatures in the last year are reaching 35 degrees and so on. So you absolutely cannot, it's meaningless to approach it as a local problem. We need global approach. And do you agree with here, or do I go too far? What do I mean by moderately conservative? I'm sick, now comes the problematic part. I'm sick and tired of these leftists fascinated by the big events, you know, 1 million people on Tahrir Square and so on. This doesn't fascinate me. My obsession is always the morning after. Okay, let's look 3 months later when the situation returns to normal. What's the situation of so-called ordinary people? That's why my old joke, maybe you know it, that film V for Vendetta. My usual joke was, in my tasteless style, I would sell my mother into slavery to see V for Vendetta Part 2. Because at the end, people take over. Nice, but what will happen then? What will they do? I think that what Trump got correctly, and that gives me hope for us, is that he saw that this neoliberalism in the form of liberal, democratic, welfare state, whatever, that its time it's over. You know who even saw this clearly? Francis Fukuyama himself. That's why in the last election he advocated voting for Bernie Sanders. You know. So now I will go to provoke you maybe too far. I would say that the left first has to stop this fascination with old-fashioned subversion. events, you demonstrate on the street, you break windows, you make obscene gestures, and so on. Sorry, the right has taken this from us, inclusive, as I repeat in every of my appearances here. For example, the 6th of January, my friends were crying. They were telling me, my God, a large group of people invading the seat of power, Congress. We should be doing this. No, they are doing this. And I am here for what? First, that's why I quote in that book, Zero Ground or What, although I'm very critical otherwise of Lenin, Lenin's wonderful text from 1922 on climbing a mountain, when he said, this is a model of revolutionary process, when you climb a mountain and you see halfway that you got stuck, you don't just stand there and think about it. You must retreat down to the zero level. And this is what the left should do today.
Well, I mean, you said one thing is clear with this victory of Trump, as well as with the rise of the populist right in Europe, the left has reached its 0 point. It will have to reinvent itself thoroughly or it will perish.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I mean, when the left re-emerged as a political force in the West in the mid-2010s, you got Bernie Sanders, Corbynism, you got Syriza, you got Podemos and all the rest of it, and they all crashed to some degree. But, I mean, is an optimistic, you know, when Barry Goldwater, the right-wing Republican...
I remember, I'm old enough.
Well, indeed. So you'll remember, I mean, that was 1964, and he got thrashed by LBJ, and people then in 1980 all said about Reagan's victory that Goldwater won, it just took 16 years to count the votes. And I suppose my question is this, because the left had been so comprehensively destroyed in the 1980s for a range of reasons, the end of history, as Francis Fukuyama put it, with the end of the Cold War, Thatcherism, the defeats of the Labour movement, and we were defined by what we were against, not what we were for, and we had to reconstruct a vision of what being on the left meant. And, you know, so when Sanders and Corbyn and all the rest appeared, we didn't have that foundation. So they had to do the intellectual foundation at the same time as running for power. So there's an optimistic sense, an optimistic look of kind of reading. That was the first wave. That was our Goldwater moment. And maybe we'll have our Reagan moment in the years to come.
But I think that these leftist attempts always nonetheless ended up in the mainstream liberal democratic order reinventing itself, somehow take it over. That's why, another shock for you, I'm really opposed to the legacy of 68. Because I think that if you look at the greatest success of counter-revolution, sorry for use this term, it's how the system appropriated the legacy of the 68. What was the 68 program, to simplify it? Against this manual factory labor, more creative work, then against alienated universities, more concrete education, sexual liberation. We got it, but in a terrifying form. You no longer have... Today we are getting this with what Trump is doing. No, we don't need alienated humanities, as you know here, Kingston, Dundee, cancelling. We need this pragmatic education, quick courses to deal with real problems. This is for me the formula of a catastrophe, because you know where ideology works. What's the duty of us philosophers? No, we are often idiots, not to provide answers, but to see when people perceive a problem, we live in a crisis, to ask, what if the way we perceive a problem is part of a problem? Where is really the problem? And you don't get this from this pragmatic approach. Then, against factory work, alienated serial work, now we are getting precarious work, which is something much more horrible. It's, I think, would you agree, maybe the greatest neo-capitalist invention. You know why? Because in classical factory work, you at least knew the boss is there, I'm here, alienated working class, and I have certain basic safety, you know, like you may be exploited, blah, 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 but you have usually some kind of healthcare, retirement, and so on. With precarious work, first, the ideology is that you are treated as a small capitalist, like Uber driver. Uber will say, we are not exploiting you. You offer something on the market, you own your own means of production, we just mediate between you and the potential public, those who want your services. So what I want to say is that the whole situation is deeply mystified because A, you are presented as a small capitalist and there is already at a formal level precluded that you will have solidarity with other Uber drivers. No, they are your competitors. And the one who is really screwing you, exploiting you, claims, I'm nothing, I'm just mediating and so on. So this is the second thing. So university, I think that what we need today more than ever are precisely good old-fashioned alienated universities. The last thing, sexuality. Yes, we get free sexuality today, but it's sexuality, and I don't use this term in just old-fashioned Marxist way as a jargon. We got commodified sexuality, you know, in what sense? I find, sorry, here I'm incurably romantic. Sorry for say this. I believe in love. What do I mean by this? As I always repeat, it's always in the media, if you know why you love somebody, then it's not love. Love is, for example, you are in love, sorry, from my male chauvinist perspective, with a woman, and you say, I like her ears, her eyes, legs, whatever. But other people see the same woman, and they don't find anything special in her eyes, her ears. You know, love is the paradox that you see why you love her only when you already are in love. But today's culture more and more moves to this much more vulgar, pragmatic approach. This is the whole point of dating, like you need this, that type of partner, maybe you need more partner, polyamory, and so on. No, I think that something quite terrifying is happening also in the domain of sexuality. So, to finish, I know I speak too much, I see evil in your gaze.
No, I just
right.
Gone quite,
no,
we've just gone quite a journey.
What? Sorry to repeat an old joke, but I think...
It's an arc.
Yeah, but I think it's an old story I published 5 to 10 years ago in Guardian. But, you know, when I was asked, is romance a live romance today? I try to imagine the way we are moving now, sorry if you know this story, how would it seem? So very soon, it already is sex. And I constructed what I'm quite proud of. That's why I'm repeating the story. Let's say I'm flirting with somebody, and then we decide, okay, let's do it, the usual bullshit, your place or mine. And then I come to the date with she comes with her electric plastic dildo penis. I come with my, there is a terrible name, I don't even know, I repressed it, for this kind of a big plastic vagina where you can regulate how much it squeezes you. And so now where is sex here? I almost like the idea, although I didn't do it with anybody. We sit down, we connect to electricity both machines, we put dildo into that vaginal machine, and we listen, it works. It's absolute freedom. The machines are enjoying for us, and with the lady, I can talk about philosophy, movies, and so on. And maybe a miracle happens. You know what would be a miracle? While I'm serving her or she me tea or whatever, our hands touch by mistake. We look at each other and we go to bed, but it's do it, But it's totally without this superego pressure, you know. It's real free. You know where I would also like to practice this? That's a new idea that came to me. I'm not just repeating myself. You know, with these nonsensical wars, which are becoming like my type of sex that I described, namely, basically, wars are de facto becoming on the side of the warrior, not his, her, their victims, like video games, drones. Do you know that in Russia and Ukraine, some top drone soldiers are adolescents who were ultra successful on video games?